Now back to one of our top stories, where COSATU has called on President Cyril Ramaphosa to take decisive actions against what it says is rampant corruption. The Federation was briefing the media about its Central Executive Committee meeting outcomes. Our reporter Mbali Thethani is following the story and joins us live. Mbali, thank you so much for your time. We knew that corruption was going to be top of the agenda today. What else transpired in that meeting?
Well, of course, Nati, we do know that the COSATU had the CC meeting for 2 days. And this, of course, is the second CC meeting for the year. And, of course, they had to stop these meetings because of COVID-19. And they usually convene at least 4 of these meetings in a year. And on top of that, coming out of that meeting is the issue around corruption. We've seen the COVID-19 corruption making its way out of this pandemic. And they've basically called on President Cyril Ramaphosa to swing his big axe in those words, saying that it is time that he stops talking and stops sending out statements and deals decisively with those found to be involved in this corruption. We are now joined by Mike from COSATU, and just wanting us to tell us more about the outcomes of your meeting. You've spoken boldly about dealing with corruption, especially that stemming from COVID-19.
Yes, that's correct. We have made a point as COSATU that we think the president must act now, both as a state, because as we have made it in our statement, that most of the state agencies that are supposed to act and the law enforcement agencies are weakened, and we think that they must give them the courage that they deserve. But at the same time, he must also make sure that he acts within his own part. In other words, the executive committee that he leads must be able to make sure that it reins in those that are suspected to be corrupt. We mean that this thing of him every time there's an allegation, will establish commissions and establish interministerial teams are not going to solve, because those are not able to act as a deterrent against those who are found wanting.
And of course, you are an alliance partner to the ANC. Why do you think that it's taken them so long in terms of dealing with issues of corruption? We found ourselves back here again. We saw these scenes playing out under the previous leadership of the former President Jacob Zuma, and we now back to this, dealing with the issues of corruption. There are measures to deal with this in the ANC. They did also resolve in their 2017 conference issues around how they will deal with corruption, but we're not seeing them act again.
Yeah, in fact, it's not only the 2017 conferences. There are many other conferences that the ANC have ever said. They've always spoken out and resolved against corruption. The issue is the question of the leadership collective that gets elected by delegates in conference and entrusted with the responsibility to implement their own resolutions. Previous collective, even this one collective, as you correctly said, is found wanting on making sure that they deal with those things. Corruption is a societal thing inherent in a capitalist state like ours, but those that are given a responsibility to lead the state and also to be a leader of society themselves must act, must lead by example, but also must be seen to be doing something to be resolving those things. So we really don't understand. That's what we want to understand from him. What are the limitations that he has, or his state machinery has, or his organization has? Perhaps it must come out clear, but all we are saying is that indeed he must carry that X, and anyone who is going to stand in front of that X must actually get his or her head chopped.
You've also shown your support for a strike by now. We know that they are on a protest this week, just highlighting the problems around PPEs in hospitals. It's also stemming from that 2018 agreement in which you have signed, when it comes to wage increases and so forth for some of your members. You've also saying that, this is time for your unions to act.
Yes, like I said earlier on, we were here on the 26th of February 2020 when the government, and through Tito Mboweni and Senzo Mchunu, made that pronouncement that they are declaring war against workers, and they are actually provoking workers. There's no way that workers can accept this recklessness from the government. It is now today, but it's going to be many more unions that are going to follow in the public service, because there's no way that we can allow a state that's supposed to be a custodian of policies and adherence to policies to break our rules. Our point is that when you have rules of engagement such as bargaining processes getting undermined and by a government, what you are saying actually is that you're going to live in a lawless society. You're going to live in a ruleless society. Then anarchy and chaos is going to take place. So we can't allow that. So we are supporting that. And as I'm saying, many more unions are coming. The workers must fight and defend collective bargaining and defend that hard-won rights of theirs.
Are you not concerned of what this will do, especially the strike by now, what it will do to the healthcare sector, especially now when we are in the face of this pandemic and, of course, the spread of the virus continues? Are you not concerned at all how this will impact the country?
We are concerned. The reason we are going on strike is because we're actually concerned, because already workers are under pressure. Remember, we went to lockdown in March. Already the employer by February has already reneged from this agreement. We tried to follow the dispute resolution processes, including going for conciliation in the bargaining council. The employer did not. We are now in arbitration. They are playing tricks. They are taking the unions to court because they are arguing that the PSBC, which is the custodian of collective bargaining, has no jurisdiction over a collective agreement that was signed under it. We find that thing to be bizarre. So we think that we are concerned that we are at lockdown. We are concerned that there's COVID-19. We're concerned that there's an economy that's going down. But that concern is to the extent that workers are the ones that are bearing the brunt, because the leadership of government doesn't seem to care about workers, that are underpaid, that are overworked, that are dying, that their families are dying, but they don't seem to care. They don't give them their salary. They don't give them the incentives for working while South Africans are on lockdown.
We also know that you've also announced there will be a strike, a nationwide strike, when it comes to the issues around corruption in October. We are observing lockdown regulations right now, and the issues around crowd control and large gatherings. There are limitations to that. How do you plan on embarking on a successful strike later this year?
Firstly, the fact that we are observing lockdown regulations as a country did not stop those who are in charge to oppress workers. They are dismissing them now as we speak. They are oppressing them as we speak. They are suspending them as we speak. Didn't stop those who have a tendency of stealing from the public to continue to steal. So in other words, every other thing has not been stopped except that workers must not go on strike. So we say labor laws in this country are not suspended. The Labour Relations Act is still there. The constitutional right of workers to go on strike is still there. The modalities in terms of crowd control, we have always managed the crowd control even when there were no regulations in terms of how crowd should be controlled. We will see into those, but the strike will be successful. Workers have are resolute that they cannot continue to watch their jobs being disseminated. They cannot continue to see the little resources that we have in this country being plunged, and then nothing is happening. We have done this thing before. We have always fought against things. We're standing up, and the strike is going to be successful. In terms of the modalities, we're going to outline those as and when the date arrives.
All right, thank you very much, Mike. Of course, that is Mike Shingage talking about, the protest that is expected to happen much later this year when it comes to the issues around corruption. They are highlighting that issue. But there's also another problem stemming from that 2018 agreement, which they say that is still owed to their workers, especially now during the pandemic, saying that those working in the healthcare sector are really stretched during this time. They do work long hours. And when it comes to issues around PPEs, they are not properly protected while doing their jobs. It's back to you, Unati.
Mbali, thank you so much for your time. That was our reporter, Mbali Thethani, giving us a feedback on the COSATU's Central Executive Committee.